I'm James McGuire, and today we're talking about how to gain competitive advantage from data analytics. To talk about that, I'm joined by two major leading voices in the field. With me is Andy Mann, Chief Technology Advocate at Splunk. Hello to you, Andy.
Hey, James, how you doing? It's great to be here with you.
Good, good. And I know you're also an expert on DevOps. I'm hoping we can work DevOps and analytics into the conversation at some point today.
Yeah, fantastic. It's one of my special subjects I love to talk about, so let's bring it.
All right, great. Also with us is Bill Schmarzo, CTO for IoT and Analytics at Hitachi Vantara. Hello to you, Bill.
Hello, and go Cubs.
well, you're going to make some people love you and some people hate you. So I guess, you're not trying to please all the people there.
Well, everybody loved us until we actually won a World Series. But, come on, once every 108 years, give us a break.
Got to happen. And Bill, I know you're also known as the Dean of Big Data, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So we actually have the Dean with us today. So, gaining competitive advantage from data analytics, obviously businesses here in 2018 are very focused on that. And there's a lot of power in analytics, to be sure. But I think there's a lot of confusion, too, in terms of really getting all the people in a various company, on board to really leverage analytics to their, greatest potential. So the question is, and Bill, I'll ask you this first, how do you gain alignment and consensus around analytics within a company to make the most of it?
So one of the things we're doing, James, is we're actually embracing concepts called design thinking, which may seem very bizarre that we're talking design thinking when I'm talking analytics.
Okay.
But the thing that there's a lot of things design thinking does. One of the things I find very powerful about design thinking is it has techniques for bringing everybody into the process. And the challenge for analytics isn't doing the analytics in many cases, though dealing with data is always a tough problem. Andy knows that probably as well as anybody. But it's in many cases, your data scientists will come up with really great algorithms for problems that no one cares about. And so the way to ensure that you are actually driving the operationalization and the adoption of the analytics is to bring people early into the process. We really embrace these concepts around design thinking as a way to bring everybody into the process. And we know that analytics can be built and really great insights can be uncovered. But if you don't have the key stakeholders brought into the process early so they have a chance to contribute and understand what you're building, if they're not brought in early, your chances of operationalizing those and driving adoption are very slim. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what we do early on in the process, almost nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with analytics or data, but it's everything to do with organizational change and adoption.
But does the concept of design thinking, how does it deal with issues like there may be sort of a power play within the organization, like, hey, we want to go in this direction with analytics, we want to do this. I mean, it seems like there's some difficult problems in terms of who owns it, who decides it. Does design thinking address those issues?
Well, design thinking will certainly surface those issues. But if you have organizational power plays, move on, right? It's just not going to happen. It's so, we can't work magic. We can work magic with data, but we can't work magic with people. Right. And so if you've got organizational power plays going on, design thinking will raise the awareness, will make people aware of what's happening and maybe even understand the cost of it, but it won't solve it. Let me give you a really good example. Data silos, right? Mm-hmm. There was a point in time when data silos was a technology issue. Not anymore. It's a political organizational issue where organizations don't want to give up their data. Design thinking can make you aware, can make you understand the cost of that and the pain, but can't make people change.
Mm-hmm. And Andy, what would you say in terms of building consensus and alignment around leveraging big data within a company? It's a difficult topic, to be sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bill's absolutely right. I mean, I say for a number of different areas that technology is easy and people are hard, Mm-hmm. And we can tell technology what to do, but people have a mind of their own, for better or worse. Mm-hmm. Really, it's about showing benefits. It's about working with business. And it's one thing that I believe strongly in terms of innovation generally is that you can't drive it just out of one person or one team. IT can't say, we're going to do analytics, because if you haven't got a consumer that wants to pull that from you, then you're just never going to get the traction in the organization. You're never going to overcome that politics. So certainly for IT leadership, for analytics leadership, working with business stakeholders to try and get that real alignment. We've talked about IT business alignment for years. And I think working with the business areas to get that alignment, what is analytics going to do for you? What do you actually want to try and get out of it? We can provide data lakes until we drown, But if we're not going to give useful outcomes to our business peers, then we're not really doing the right job for them.
So please let me add one other really key point and build on what Andy is saying, is that what we find with organizations that are trying to digitally transform, that is how they're trying to become more effective at leveraging data and analytics to power their business models, is this little term, right, or adage, or whatever you want to call it, right? You have to inspire. You can't mandate change, right? You can't mandate. The senior people in the organization can't mandate this is what's going to happen. You have to inspire people so that they learn and feel like they can internalize it. So mandates don't work. Inspiration is everything in this space.
But I would ask, is inspiration when it comes to the data analytics answers. I mean, the numbers and the metrics are coming out. They need to be interpreted in a certain way. There may be disagreement about how they're interpreted and what they might mean and what direction we should go in based on those metrics. Where does inspiration come in there and some of those thorny issues?
So I think inspiration is the whole basis for why you're even doing it. I mean, why are you undertaking this process? Why are you taking an organization that's probably even keel and operating just fine, and now you're going to come in there and you're going to throw, you're going to toss a snake in the kiddie pool? Mm-hmm. And so, it's got to be inspired by something. Maybe it's Amazon moving into your industry, right? Or maybe it's a senior leader who sees a broader vision and uses this ability to inspire the people to help make this change happen. Mm-hmm. If you can't get the rank and file to embrace this and start using analytics to make better decisions, then you're just not going to get the value from it that you really can.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's drill down a little bit and look at, what are some of the biggest challenges to that alignment and consensus in terms of, making analytics work for your organization, and maybe how would you overcome them? Andy, what might be a challenge and what might you do to overcome that challenge?
Yeah, look, I mean, the inspiration challenge, I think Bill's really spot on. There's a push me, pull you aspect to this, right, as well, where if the business leaders come to you, say a sales leader comes to you and says, look, I really want to figure out how can I engage better with my customers? And then as a developer, as a product leader, even someone in IT ops, you can start to work with that person, go, well, let me see what I can show you. Let's try some things. Let's do some A/B testing, some multivariate testing. Let's do some blue-green. Let's see if we can tweak some levers to get that engagement up. So you can have a really good, positive two-way conversation there. The other alternative, and I see this occasionally as well, is when a product owner, a developer, or even an operations person can come to that business leader, a sales leader, a marketing leader, someone else, and say, look, I was looking at the data off the mobile app, off your website, off the order entry application, maybe out of cash flow. I was looking at this data and I found these interesting patterns. I found these outcomes. Would it be interesting for you to drill down more into that? So going to them and saying, look, I found that when people are walking around the store, they use their mobile app quite a lot to check prices on a different website. Would you like to sort of drill down into that? So I think that we can, as IT leaders, I think we can inspire our business peers because we've been able to look at data. And if they're not inspired at all, then Bill's right. You may as well turn your energies to something different. But I think if you can find that common ground, whether it's the business peers coming to the IT people with something they need, or IT people going to their business peers with something they've found out, if you can find that common ground, I think you've really got somewhere to go.
Common ground between IT people and business people, Andy. Such a thing does happen?
Cats and dogs playing together in the streets. What's going on here?
Lambs and lions laying down. I've heard it happens, James. I've heard it possible.
All right, I believe it. Okay, no, it does. Bill, what's your take? If there's an obstacle, there's a challenge. What are some of the biggest obstacles and challenges, and how might you overcome at least one of them?
The biggest challenge I find is that people especially older people who are entrenched, which really means senior executives, they do a crappy job of unlearning.
Right.
They don't know how to unlearn what they've learned. So things that we've held as gospel for, how you build a data warehouse, how you build reports and dashboards, what the heck even analytics is, the definitions have changed and they will continue to change. And you've got a lot of people in senior leadership who have gotten to where they are because they rode, an ERP implementation. They rode that to success, right? A lot of bodies laid on the side of the road from ERP projects, but this one person survived, and now they're the CIO, and their whole world looks like ERP, and they don't understand. They can't grasp what's this whole new heavy data, big data, data science world that's in front of them. So I think senior executives struggle with unlearning, and that is the biggest challenge.
Of course, some of those senior executives have had enough time in the field to have sort of a gut instinct. But of course, that gut instinct may not agree with where the numbers are going. And the numbers may be right, regardless of their gut instinct. And that's kind of a problem, gut instinct versus the numbers. And, what do you do with that? I don't know. It's an open question. Andy, what would you say? Yeah, please.
There's a lot you can do with gut instincts. I'm actually a believer in, I'm a very pragmatic kind of operator myself. There are some decisions you don't have enough data to make. There are some decisions where even if you've got a lot of data, you still need to bring intuition and experience to the party. But I'm very much with Bill. And I'm always up for a good Star Wars quote. So yes, you must unlearn what you have learned. I caught it, Bill. But it's a very important point. I think that bringing data to the party can also be deceptive. You can bring data to a decision point where if you don't have the right data, you don't have enough data, you don't have convincing data, it can even be counterintuitive at times. So I think it's about striking the balance. But I think that you've got to challenge traditional expectation. It's something I wrote about a long time ago in my book on innovation, is that your best innovation is not going to come from your senior leadership. It's going to come from junior people. It's going to come from one of the CIOs I interviewed at that time for my book, came out and said they always sat down with their interns once a month because they didn't know what they weren't allowed to do.
Right.
They could break convention. So getting data in front of senior executives and challenging their preconceptions with that data. And, and this comes back to things like the challenger sale, the whole set of ideas around how do you sell ideas to people. One of those ways is to challenge their preconceptions. Show them data that says, look, this is what I found when I went to my data. Our application is not being used the way you think it's being used. Our website is not driving the level of engagement, the level of business. Our stickiness is not there. Click-through rates are not showing up what you think they are. We can, coming with that data, but when you've got two opinions, someone said this the other day, if it's just a matter of opinion, then mine's right.
Right.
But if you come to the party with data, at least you have a footing on which to challenge those notions. And you're never going to innovate. You're never going to do better if you just do the same things over and over again. So challenging those preconceptions is great. And challenging them with data gets you one step further along that pathway, I think.
I'd be curious to get the sense from the two of you in terms of like where businesses are really at with using analytics, which is to say, are businesses really on board and really, guiding themselves with analytics, or is this still more of a floundering, nascent field and we're kind of guiding our way through the darkness? What's your take on that?
I think we're floundering.
Okay.
I think you'll see pockets in organizations who have embraced analytics, but as a whole, we won't see universal change until we change the way people get paid. John Smale, when I was at Procter & Gamble, he said this great quote: "You are what you measure, and you measure what you reward," which is you are how you pay people. And so if we pay people the way we've always paid them in the past, they'll continue to do the things they've always done. And so how do you use compensation and recognition to change behaviors? Well, how about pay people, incent people based on sharing, right? Sharing data, sharing analytics, sharing best practices. Right? You create a collaborative environment, reward people for collaboration, and we don't do that, right? We reward on outcomes in some cases, or we reward on effort, right? You don't even reward on outcomes unless you're in sales, right? You just show up and put in your 8 or 9 hours, and then that's good enough. So there's a lot that we need to do at a organizational level in order to really to harvest the real benefits that are out there in analytics.
Yeah, and Bill, certainly looking at the sharing thing is really critical, because I can't tell you how many times I've worked directly with application developers who are seeing patterns. They're getting their data. They're seeing patterns in things around like customer engagement, revenue generation, click-through rates, and all sorts of stuff. But they have no avenue to work with their business peers in sales or marketing to say, hey, look what I'm seeing. This is really important. If you don't share those platforms, I think that's a really powerful barrier to any of this.
Andy, what's your take on whether or not businesses are, where they are in the arc of really using analytics truly? Are they floundering, or they're pretty well on board?
The answer to that question is an absolute 100% yes.
Yeah, okay. It's a big question for sure. Yeah.
There are organizations that are floundering. I mean, and I see this very deeply, of course. Splunk is an analytics company. We're a data company. So I'm working all the time with people who are neck deep in all of this. And so I see people who are floundering a lot. Part of the big challenge is unable to get access to the right levels of data to do the analytics. The web team has the website locked down, but I'm a database person. So I just see database data, and ne'er the twain shall meet. So the sharing action, getting the data in, sharing it, having the people who understand how to treat it. So analytics people, having data scientists to be able to understand what can I do, what is the art of the possible, having the right machine learning, the right algorithms, the right training data is also really critical. So there's a lot of barriers in the way, and I don't blame people for floundering. But by the same token, I'm seeing some organizations who are getting incredible results. You look at some of my customers, for example, Domino's. Domino's applies analytics to their pizza making, to their marketing, to their coupon business, to their internal operations and development teams, and they're doing amazing things because of it. They're able to balance workloads between different pizza shops based on real-time feedback on how well their coupons are working. You look at airports, for example, Dubai, Gatwick, able to reduce the wait time at security from 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes down to 5 minutes on average, simply by looking at the data on where are their customers, where are the security personnel, how long is it taking to get through the line, where is baggage. They're able to increase the time, reduce the time it takes for people to get their bags off a plane. Yep. They're able to improve the Wi-Fi service through the airport. They're able to improve the experience at security. So technology benefits, business benefits, customer benefits, all through the use of analytics. So it's a mixed bag, James. I mean, some companies are doing amazing things, and a lot of companies are, to Bill's point, still trying to figure out what even can I do with analytics.
Well, Amazon, for example, is absolutely an analytics monster. I mean, everything they do is driven by data. It's one of the reasons for their enormous success. I mean, that is a numbers cruncher company, to be sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it shows every now and then, I don't know if you've noticed, every now and then you go and find an item that is like 17 million% higher priced because all of a sudden an algorithm just spat the dummy and just decided to outprice that item. Sometimes it goes right, sometimes it goes wrong. But Amazon's certainly at the forefront.
Yeah. So I want to ask one more question, ask about the future. And I want to ask, where we will be with analytics a couple of years down the road, but specifically, answer that question or this other question, which I think is kind of related. Who will own analytics? I think it's kind of a question like, will C-suite own it? Will the folks, the brave, hardworking folks in the cubicles own it? Who will own it? Which is to say, who will have access to it and who will be making decisions based on it? Those are all thorny and unanswerable questions, but I ask them anyways. Going forward, Bill, who's going to own analytics and what will that mean for the future of analytics?
Everyone.
Everyone, yeah, everyone. I would hope so. But if everyone owns it, then who makes the decisions based on it?
Everyone.
Everyone. Okay, I love it. Okay,
So I teach at the University of San Francisco.
Right.
I teach a class called the Big Data MBA. And what we're doing as part of that class is we're teaching every business student to embrace analytics as a business discipline.
Right.
Like you would do with marketing or accounting or anything else, right? It's a business discipline. And so what we teach is we're not trying to turn business people into data scientists. We're trying to turn them into citizens of data science. So we have a whole curriculum that's around how do I think like a data scientist? How do I start embracing what data science can do? It's an approach and framework problem versus a tools problem. So when we're successful, we'll have everyone in the organization looking at data and analytics to help them make better decisions. It won't replace intuition. It won't replace, the human empathy kind of factors or things that are really hard to codify in a model. but it will help people to make better decisions with respect to what it is their organization is trying to accomplish. So I think in the end, when it's successful, it's just part of what we do. And let's go back to Amazon for a second. I think Amazon is really interesting. What Amazon has done and what they are progressing to do, they're not looking to optimize key business processes. They're looking to eliminate them. And they're focusing their entire digital transformation process. I just wrote a blog on this called Monetize the Pain. They look at their customers' pain points, and they are focused on how do I monetize pain, right? Think about the pain of me having to go to the store and get a new box of Captain Crunch. My box is empty, right? Instead of having to drive to the store and find a coupon and fight traffic. And what do I do now? I go, hey, Alexa, 2 boxes of Captain Crunch, right? Boom, and it shows up, right? So what they're masters of is understanding the customer journey, which is a design thinking technique, and identifying the pain points and then eliminate them, monetize them.
And that requires serious number crunching to do so.
It requires not only serious number crunching, but it requires a very deep understanding of your customers, what they're trying to accomplish. It requires you to understand their personas and customer journey maps. It requires you to understand economics. It requires you to go old school Michael Porter value chain analysis. It brings everything together around how you're going to really drive and derive new sources of digital value.
Andy, when we talk about analytics a couple of years from now, what we'll be talking about, and specifically, what about the ownership question? Who will own it? And if everyone owns it, how will we make decisions around it?
Yeah, look, I agree with Bill to an extent. And by the way, Bill, I hope you realize you've just ordered cereal.
There's
8 boxes of Captain Crunches coming to your house. Yeah, there it is.
That's good. I can use the extra calories.
No, I agree with Bill to an extent. And I see the patterns that we've seen in the past, right? Databases were the purview of someone very, very deep and significant in an organization, and slowly started to build out into other areas, and we had better ways of using data. The digital was another one. We now have chief digital officers, and they own digital, but it's part of a coordination function in the best businesses. And in the best businesses, everyone owns digital. It's like saying, who owns mobile? Does sales own it? Does marketing own it? Does IT own it? Hell, does networking own it? Everyone has to have a piece of mobile, because that's how we do business today. And I think to that extent, Bill's right. Everyone's going to have to own analytics to an extent. Some people will be analytics consumers. Some people will be analytics providers within the business. I think there will still be centers of excellence around data analytics. You'll still have data scientists who can do the hard, the really in-depth PhD level number crunching, building the algorithms, for example, while you've got data consumers who will be everyone, to Bill's point. They need to be able to consume that data and make business decisions based on that data, just as a salesperson needs to understand the financing of their product, just as a finance person needs to understand the tempo of marketing campaigns so they can fund them and get the ROI on them. Everyone's going to need to understand, how do I use data in my role and pull that data from the providers within their business. And maybe that's a chief data officer or a chief data department. Maybe it's not. But yeah, I think everyone's going to have to consume, but not everyone will provide.
Well, but of course, in the future, if you are a data consumer, you by necessity, you have to be a data analyst, because you've got to understand what that data means if you're going to consume it. True or false?
Yes and no, because it's like, historically, we would have said you needed to be an IT person to use information technologies. And we went through consumerization of IT. And now it's more the case that there's more computing power out in the hands of our employees than there is in our data center. And now we may not even have a data center.
Right.
So I think that, yes, they will need to be data analytics professionals, but the process of doing data analytics, I think, is going to get so much easier. It's going to be like an iPhone in our hand, as opposed to the IT department of yesteryear.
I love that phrase, the commercialization or the consumerization of analytics. I love that. I think that's really a powerful concept. And we've think about how relevant the iPhone is, right? We no longer call an operator to make phone calls, right? It used to be a point in time and day when you had to make a phone call, you called an operator and they plug things in, right? the consumerization of communications. Now I think you're spot on. It's the consumerization of analytics. I love that. I love that.
I hear a blog post coming.
Amen. I'm working on it right now.
I thank the two of you for your expertise very much, and I'll send you the link when it's done. Thank you very much.
This was great. Andy, great to meet you. I love how you think.
Thank you, Bill. Always great to meet a fellow traveler in the area of analytics. Really enjoyed the conversation. James, thanks so much for having us both.